Hey guys, welcome to Relatable. Happy Thursday. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Good Ranchers. Go to goodranchers.com/Allie. That's goodranchers.com/Allie. Okay, today we are talking to my friend Alex Clark. She hosts the Instagram show Poplitics. She talks about pop culture from a conservative perspective. She also hosts a show called The Spillover, which is a long-form interview podcast that comes out once a month. A lot of you guys already know, follow, and love Alex Clark, so you can kind of know what to expect from that conversation. Some of you may be unfamiliar. It's going to be super fun. She is a fun, bubbly, very smart, entertaining, funny person, and you're just going to love this podcast. It's a little bit of a lighter episode, which is good. We talk about some heavy things. If you haven't listened to Tuesday's episode, Tuesday's episode was about everything that happened in Uvalde. I highly recommend going to listen to that. And then yesterday's episode was the Christian response to Pride Month. And we talked about a few of the crazy things going on in the Biden administration, in public schools, around this kind of sexual revolution and how it is affecting our kids. Go listen to that. Today, we're on a little bit of a lighter note. We are talking about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. You guys know we have not discussed that on Relatable. I have only started following it a little bit over the past couple of days. The verdict came out. You guys probably know there were accusations of abuse toward Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp said that's not true, sued Amber Heard for defamation. And so this whole thing has just been an ugly mess. The trial has been 6 weeks. Most people on social media have been on Johnny Depp's side. It's just a whole crazy thing. I just have not had the capacity to follow along. But Alex is going to tell us why this matters, why this is important. She's going to summarize what happened, and then I'm going to give my take on it just from kind of an outside observer. I think it's a unique and, dare I say, nuanced opinion about the conclusion of this whole trial and how it kind of went down. We're also going to talk about friendships, how to make friends with like-minded people, also when to know to not be friends with someone anymore because of some very serious disagreements. We're going to talk about relationships and dating. She's going to give us some insight into her experiences in that world as a conservative Christian in this wild dating space that we are in right now. So I know that you're going to love this conversation. It's going to be upbeat, but also insightful, and I just hope encouraging for you guys. If you love this podcast, I'll end the week on this. If you love this podcast, would you please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts? Thank you so much to those of you who have already done that. You don't have to give a long-winded response unless you want to, or a long-winded explanation about why you love the show. You can, or you can just write a sentence telling us why you love Relatable. Also, another announcement before we get started, we've got lots of merch on our merch website. We've got Raise a Respectful Ruckus shirts. We've got Politics Matter because policy matters because people matter, which kind of summarizes our show. We've got those t-shirts. We've also got stickers that say that now. We've got lots of fun stickers. We also have a shirt that says Millennials Against Low-Rise Jeans. Another theme of this show. I will never go back to the low-rise jean trend. I am against it. We've got stickers that say that. We've got all kinds of new stuff, and we have new merch coming. So we will include the link to that in the description of this episode if you're watching on YouTube or if you are listening wherever you are listening. So go check that out. All right, one last thing before we get into the conversation with Alex Clark, and that is our first sponsor for the day, which is Eat and Pure. So you can purify the air in your home, get healthy, clean, fresh smelling air, eliminate odors, kill mold and mildew and bacteria and viruses with products from Eden Pure. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm Air Purifier uses Oxy technology. It naturally sends out O3 molecules into the air that seeks out odors, air pollutants in your home and destroys them. It doesn't just mask or cover up bad smells. It's not just like, using an air freshener. We are actually talking about purifying your home, making it a healthier experience to breathe in your home, especially those of you who are new moms. You're starting to think about this stuff in a way that you hadn't before. Maybe you're thinking about those air fresheners that you've got plugged in and you're wondering, is this really healthy for me? Is this healthy for my baby? Well, why not clean your air, purify your air in a natural way rather than just covering up bad odors using the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. Right now, you can save $200 on an Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack for whole home protection. You get 3 units for under $200. That is a really good deal. I mean, these things can be super expensive. Their competitors are super expensive, but this is like the best of the best, top of the line product, and you're getting all 3 of them for under $200. So go to EdenPureDeals.com and put in discount code Allie. That's EdenPureDeals.com. Put in discount code Allie to save $200. EdenPureDeals.com, discount code Allie. Shipping is free. Alex, thanks so much for joining Relatable again, this time the first time in studio. We're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about YWLS. We're going to talk about women and conservatism and all that good stuff. But first, I want to talk about kind of the pop culture drama that's going on this week that we have not talked about at all on Relatable. I really haven't discussed it because I haven't had the capacity to care. But I thought it would be interesting to talk a little bit about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard verdict that came out yesterday. Can you just give us like a brief rundown? What the heck happened and why should we care about this at all?
Okay, we actually should really care about this. It's very, very big, not only for pop culture, but I just think culture in general, what happened here. Because in 2018, Amber Heard wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post, and she basically said, without saying Johnny Depp's name, and everyone knew that they had a very long-term relationship, that she was a survivor of domestic abuse and domestic violence. And so he sued her for defamation because he ended up losing, a ton of movie deals after that. Everybody in Hollywood started to hate him.
Yeah.
They labeled him this abuser, this terrible person. So he sues her. She countersues him for defamation. And so they end up in this trial with a jury and everything, suing each other. He wanted, I believe, $50 million. She countersued him for $100 million, I think. And what ended up happening was they both ended up getting money. They were both found, I don't know if guilty is the right word, but they were both found like they had defamed each other in certain aspects. He got more money in the end than she did.
He got like $15 million.
And she got 2.
Okay.
So essentially, in the public's eyes, Johnny Depp wins. But what's really interesting is that she really tried to brand this as, well, this is me too. This is me speaking out. This is for women everywhere. But in the trial, it comes out that really she was just as much of a verbal abuser, physical abuser, even maybe more so than him. She's on tape talking about punching him. She also pooped in his bed. So that's the biggest part.
But she said that she didn't. So I followed a little bit of this and she said, no, I would never do that. That's disgusting. That was our Yorkie. But then the driver testified on the stand and said that she told him in the car after it happened that she did.
Oh, yeah.
And that it was a practical joke gone wrong.
She
and
100% did.
The defecation was like a surprise that she left for Johnny Depp. So I feel like that in itself may have just like ruined her credibility in general with the jury. If I'm the jury, I'm like, okay, that's disgusting. What else would you do?
Well, she did all kinds of weird stuff. She was, whatever Johnny would wear the next day in court, she would copy his outfits.
Okay, tell me why. Tell me why you think she did that.
Because it's a weird psychological manipulation. She's a crazy person. You think? I mean, she's literally the psycho girl, the girlfriend, the ex-girlfriend that like goes and keys your car and poops on your bed. I mean, she's crazy. So I think that's kind of her way, is just a petty kind of thing to do.
Yeah.
But nothing she did in trial made her look good.
Right. Okay, so one thing, though, that I will say is that there was some evidence that he was an abuser. Not necessarily all of the allegations that she made against him, like physical abuse, but we do have some tape that apparently she leaked to TMZ, but then she lied and said that they didn't leak to TMZ, where he was at least like attacking the cabinets, which might not be physical abuse towards her, but is kind of abusive because you're making this kind of intimidating environment, and he is verbally abusing her. And there is some evidence that he was not a great guy towards her, that the marriage counselor, which was his witness, went up on the stand and said, yeah, I think that they mutually abused each other, at least emotionally and verbally abused each other.
100%. It was a super toxic relationship.
And then, but when she sued, because there was another case, so Depp filed in 2018 a libel claim against News Group Newspapers, the owner of The Sun, because The Sun ran an article a few years ago calling him a wife beater, and he lost that case because The Sun argued, well, there is credible evidence that he is a wife beater, and the court in the UK found that, yeah, there is credible evidence against him, and so this is not a valid case of libel. So I don't know what to make all that. I don't know if she is completely, totally lying. There seems to be some evidence stacked against him.
No, there's definitely evidence against him. They were toxic for each other. They both said things to each other, talked horribly to each other. She, at least on tape, admitted to physically abusing him, punching him, and said, don't be such a baby about it. Who cares? I punch you in the face, so what? That kind of stuff. So they both were awful. The thing is, though, that's interesting is that what this really showed is that, men can be victims of domestic abuse too. It can go both ways. And so this whole mentality of, believe all women no matter what without hearing both sides, it's just, there's a little bit more nuance to this than that. And I think even liberal Hollywood with this case was faced to look in the mirror and say, okay, maybe all this stuff that we've been saying, with Me Too and all this and always believe all women, maybe that isn't always the case. And you should listen to men too, because they can be victims as well.
Yeah, I do think that that's important to know. I was a little bit uncomfortable as just kind of an outside observer with the number of people that seem to exclusively be mocking Amber Heard and almost like lionizing Johnny Depp as just like this sweet, genteel Southern gentleman who has never done anything wrong. And look how wonderful his past girlfriends say that he is. And he is just a victim in this case. Look, he might be a victim of defamation. Apparently he is, but that doesn't mean that he is completely innocent. Like, this ruling doesn't mean that they didn't rule him some perfect guy. And so I did think that dichotomy was weird. Like, let's totally malign Amber Heard and pretend like this guy is perfect. I think that speaks to social media's pressure to pick a side. Like, do we really have to pick a side and say that he is a perfect guy? I'm not really sure that we do.
And I think that's why social media exists in general, not only with just cultural phenomenons and pop culture things like this, but also in politics, is to push people into extremes and picking a side like that. But his team, his PR team, their goal with this trial was not to win money. Obviously, he doesn't care about that. It was totally to revamp his image because he has lost so much in the last few years. And so I think that they succeeded. So it'll be interesting, what jobs and things that he gets after this, if he really does start making a name for himself. I don't know if Amber is going to be essentially broke after this because she does not have that much money. She's not worth anything now. And now
how's she even going to pay this $15 million?
Well, her team is saying that they want her to appeal. So maybe she's going to appeal and try to ask for if she can pay less.
Yeah. See, I'm a little uncomfortable about this whole PR push for Johnny Depp because I was looking at a thread and it was from like a liberal journalist. So they have their own perspective, but they were basically saying that this really has been affected by TikTok and by Instagram and just like the little edited clips that people see online. And it's become kind of a sport to only make fun of Amber Heard, which I think a lot of the criticism, as we've already said, is totally valid. And then, like I said, to try to almost deify Johnny Depp. And I don't want our justice system to work that way. I don't want a jury to be affected. I don't want a ruling to be affected by the decontextualized clips and narratives that you see online. Even if she is guilty, I don't think that's how we want our justice system to go. Outside of the whole like Me Too conversation, I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about justice in general. I don't know. The whole PR aspect of this for him, it just made me uncomfortable.
Well, it begs the question, in this day and age of social media and TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, is there even the possibility truly for people to have a fair trial anymore if you're ever in that situation? And that is very scary to me.
Yeah, that's super scary. But I do think that it is important that we realize that accused people have rights, that you are innocent until proven guilty. I wish that we functioned more like that on social media. We typically don't. And there's also there's a biblical aspect to this. Like if you look at the Old Testament and like God's law giving to Israel, you see that there are rights for the accused. It's not just the accuser. And that was like the fatal flaw of the MeToo thing. The believe all women like really subverts that principle of innocent until proven guilty. It's guilty until proven innocent, and that really can ruin someone's life. And the Bible actually required in ancient Israel that the person who falsely accused someone else, say it was, of murder, and would have sent that person to execution, actually had to suffer the consequence that the accused would have had to suffer if they made a false allegation. And so the whole idea of someone making a false accusation of being punished for defamation goes all the way back thousands of years. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. There should be accountability for false accusations.
Absolutely, I agree.
Okay, another quick break from that fun conversation to tell you about one of my truly all-time favorite sponsors. And it's because I use this product all the time, and that is the clothing from Carly Jean Los Angeles. Carly Jean Los Angeles is a Los Angeles-based capsule clothing company. It started in 2004. Carly Jean started it herself with 3 simple goals: help women feel as beautiful as they already are, simplify the shopping and getting ready process, and provide beautiful quality pieces that can be worn in any season of life. It's an inspiring resource to guide women in building capsule wardrobes to make getting dressed a joy every day. Don't you just love things that make your life easier and that also provide great products, great clothes that you want to wear? I feel so good in Carly Jean clothes, and I feel good no matter what size I am, no matter what season of life I'm in, no matter what season of the year it is. Their clothes are truly versatile. I wear them when I'm pregnant, postpartum. I wear them all the time right now when I am neither. I truly love their products, and I love the people that work at Carly Jean Los Angeles. So check them out. Go to carlyjeanlosangeles.com. Use promo code AllieB. You'll save 20% off your first order of anything in their online store when you do. Go to carlyjeanlosangeles.com. Promo code AllieB for that discount. That's carlyjeanlosangeles.com. All right, let's move on to the next thing. I want to talk a little bit about YWLS and what it is for people who don't know. Starts today. I'll be there tomorrow. But let's transition into it by, I guess, continuing our conversation about women. So I think that the left thinks that, I think they thought that back in 2018, when the whole Kavanaugh thing was happening and the MeToo was really blowing up, that all women would be affected by that. And then in the midterms, they would vote Democrats. And they kind of think that about like a lot of things, like, oh, abortion, a women's issue, Me Too, all women are going to think the same way and feel the same way. That's how we're going to get them to vote Democrat. That didn't really go the way that they thought it would in 2018. I'm wondering if you think it's going to go that way this year in the midterms, not just when it comes to Roe v. Wade, but you've also got people saying, oh, we're going to kind of exploit suburban women's fears for their kids' lives with the whole gun violence thing in order to get them to vote Democrat. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I think it's interesting hearing the left harp on things like women's issues because they want to have this super broad definition of what a woman is, right? Anyone can be a woman. So are things really women's issues at this point? I don't really think that's fair.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's interesting to me to say, we're the side that really cares about your children and wants to keep your kids safe unless we want to abort them. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. You know, they're always contradicting themselves. And you have been really, I think, on the forefront and on the cusp of understanding the super important issue and need for the conservative movement to really be targeting suburban women voters. I don't feel like enough people in the conservative movement talk about that. You've done a really good job. If we had 100 million Allie Stuckeys that were really targeting this demographic of voters, I think we would be in a better position. It is interesting to think, okay, with the Roe v. Wade stuff happening this year and the push on gun control, which way are people going to sway in the midterms? I am really hinging and hoping that the economy status is going to push people a certain way, regardless of how they feel on those issues. because of how bad things are and how dire and the formula shortage and all of those things. I hope that ends up really swaying suburban moms more. But it's just really, really hard because you have so many women saying things like, this is why when the left talks about, oh, well, yes, majority of voters are pro-choice. It's like, well, when you really dive into that, they're, pro-choice technically, but then you start asking questions like, well, not past the first trimester, and I don't agree with these things. It's like we really have to educate people on those things, educating them on hardening schools. There are other solutions as opposed to just gun control. And that takes time to really change that mindset. Can we do that by September or November? I don't know.
Yeah. I think that a lot of suburban moms, not all of them, but a lot of suburban moms have at least Christian sentiments towards things. And I think like this monopoly that the left has said that they have on compassion and empathy, I think that's really what gets a lot of suburban women. No one wants to be called a bigot. No one wants to be accused of lacking empathy. Plus, like the biggest influencers that they follow on Instagram, Glennon Doyle, Brene Brown, I would say one other one that claims that she's unbiased but is not.
Gosh, can I just say Brene Brown is a snake in the grass? I will say that.
Oh, say it. Go.
I will say that. But I have so many girls that will, look at this video, this snippet of her speech and stuff. I'm like, she is totally in that very, tiptoeing around like the new age stuff and everything.
Oh, she 100% is. And she's very pro-abortion. She's pro every left-wing issue that you can possibly think of, including transitioning kids. So is Jen Hatmaker. And these are the people that a lot of suburban women are going to, and they think that they're informed because they read an infographic of decontextualized data, pseudo data from someone like Brene Brown. And I think all of us, myself included, are susceptible to emotional manipulation. But when those are the only people that you go to, I think it's very easy to be swayed into voting Democrat because you think that's compassionate. And that drives me crazy. I mean, that just drives me wild.
Well, and they have this fear of, so for example, this week with obviously Gay Pride Month starting, Poplitics, my daily show, we posted a graphic that said, men are not women or men cannot be women, something like that. And I said, let's use hashtags like Pride and Pride Month. So that
to gin up some controversy.
Oh, yeah. And it did.
So what were some of the comments?
So some of the comments were, wow, this is a cool take. Yeah, you just want people to die. You're pro trans kids dying. And it's like, okay, one of my favorite people who has really tackled this issue is journalist Abigail Schreier, who you've talked to on your show, and I've talked to her, and she's so good about talking about, the left and especially the alphabet mafia preys on these suburban women, telling them like, of course, you don't want kids to commit suicide, right? By not affirming their transgender identities and all of this different stuff. And she's like, there is zero data to prove that once they transition, that all of a sudden, their suicidal thoughts and ideations go down. It stays the same. And I brought this up. I was thinking the other day, I thought, whatever happened to that Jazz Jennings girl, TLC, I Am Jazz,
breaks my
guy.
Heart.
Yeah. And so Jazz Jennings transitions, his parents have him transition before puberty, and now he is in college, has full sex reassignment surgery. So they made him a vagina. Okay.
And he has to dilate it every day.
And doesn't like doing it all the time, because there was an episode where Jazz's mother said, you better be doing this. We paid all this money for your surgery and you're not even really keeping up with it. Morbidly obese, severe depression, binge eating disorder, all these different things that Jazz has been open about lately. And it's like, how can you look at that and say like, they're living the picture perfect life now? Nothing has gotten better for him. But that's just one of many issues. But I think that's the sad thing is, again, one of those lies that we have to be better about explaining to people. It's not compassionate to transition these kids before puberty.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was something, I don't know if you've seen Matt Walsh's What is a Woman documentary.
I have been, as soon as Why to Be Less is over, I've been like swamped in this. I am so looking forward to watching it.
I mean, it's laugh out loud funny on some parts just because he is his dry humor is so funny. And then other parts are super sad. And I don't want to give too much away. I want people to go watch it. We talked about it yesterday. But at one point he talks to a person who is a woman, transitioned into a man, I think regrets the transition very much. She was just always told by people, you're more like a guy, you're an alpha female, whatever. So transition, said that she has infections every year. She's gone through 17 rounds of antibiotics because she had a phalloplasty, where basically they make a penis out of like the skin in her arm, said that she's probably going to die early just because of the health complications that she's had. And she said, look, this entrapped me when I was 42 years old. I believed the propaganda and the manipulation that people are telling me. Like young kids do not stand a chance because kids are extremely malleable. They're extremely open to influence. If someone in authority, like a teacher, says, you know what, I've noticed that you like playing with dolls. Why don't you come in here in the closet and try on a dress and see how you like it? You might actually be a girl, which is something that is happening on a daily basis in the United States. Then of course that kid, the power of suggestion is so strong. And then, as you said, the manipulation for the mother that, well, you have to affirm this or you're going to have a dead kid. There's no data showing that. The suicide rate for trans people is most 7 to 10 years after transition.
It's very, very interesting.
Yes.
And you know, Jazz Jennings too, he has had to have multiple, after he had his first sex reassignment surgery, he's had to go back and had multiple other ones because it's not going right.
Yeah.
Things are getting infected
your body
and stuff.
isn't, yes, and your body is going to be infected. And just a note for people, maybe you're watching this for the first time, we do use biological pronouns on this show because we don't believe that it is loving to lie about someone. And because I believe that people are made male and female in God's image and people's bodies and biology and DNA is really good, that's what I want to affirm. I'm not going to be forced to affirm a lie and something that I actually think is very destructive for the individual and for society. I think the hard thing is for conservatives is that we have such an uphill battle to explain to people like why something isn't compassionate. It's easy to just say, well, you know, for the left, they can just say, this is what it means to be a good person. And then conservatives have to say, well, sit around while I'll explain and give you facts and data. And it can be harder to, you know, grab people's attention for that.
Well, we know based on scripture that obviously, you know, Jesus talks about how it's not going to be easy being a Christian. It's also the same, being a conservative. And so I talk about this whole thing in my Why to Be Less speech that comes out tonight. I don't know when this podcast is coming out.
It's coming out today, Thursday.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So when I speak tonight, I'm really going to talk about this is that we are going to have a bullseye on us. We are going to have a target on us. You have to start being comfortable living with that bullseye on you. Be proud to have a bullseye on you, that people are going to be coming after you. If they're not coming after you, if they're not hating you, then you're not doing something right. We are going to be hated and we're going to be misunderstood. But standing for truth, sometimes that's what it's going to take. And I think a lot of times young conservative women especially, we still struggle with that. We want to be liked. We don't like people that we went to high school with that actually know us personally. And it's always the people that know you personally. That's who hurts you the most. It's the people that you went, you know, that you were in biology class with in 9th grade. It's the people that, you know, you were a nanny to their kids growing up. That were in your wedding. That happens. And it's when those people say you're a bad person, you're like, but you know me.
You know I'm not. Yeah.
You know that I'm not. And so that's where it's like, should I be saying the wrong pronoun? Should I do this so that people don't think that about me? And we have to be comfortable losing a few of those people in our life, but you will gain more. You will make other friends. And you know, that's happened with me too, just working at Turning Point.
Yeah.
I lost so many people and then have gained now so many.
All right, third sponsor for the day is Annie's Kit Clubs. Okay, if you haven't tried out Annie's Kit Clubs yet, you have to. My relatable listeners absolutely love Annie's Kit Clubs for your kids. It's a subscription crafting service for your kids, probably ages about 7 to 12 is the sweet spot there. So every month you get different kinds of crafts. You get a STEM project, you get a woodworking kit, you might get a beading kit, a jewelry making kit. They've got a wide variety of stuff that's good for both girls and boys. And it comes with all of the tools, all of the instructions that your kid needs to make this awesome project, and they can do it totally autonomously. So you don't have to go to the craft store. You don't have to sit there and guide them through the process. I mean, this really is a win for everyone. When your kid is inside after they've spent the afternoon swimming, you don't just want to sit them in front of the screen. You want them to be doing something productive and that's actually good for their brain, but you want them to be entertained so you can, you know, get dinner ready and all of that stuff. You need to try Annie's Kit Clubs because it accomplishes all of the things that you're hoping for in keeping your child occupied in a healthy way on these hot summer afternoons. So go to annieskitclubs.com/Allie, get your first month 75% off with that link. Go to annieskitclubs.com/Allie for 75% off your first month. That's annieskitclubs.com/Allie. Yeah, so talk a little bit more about that, because it's hard in the moment. I've experienced that too. Someone that, actually someone said something, because I was talking about someone that I knew I was, very close to in college, and then just ended up, she was so rude about me publicly, saying things that just weren't true, maligned me because we disagreed on abortion. And it was wild. And I actually tried to reach out and reconcile with this person and talk to this person, no response. And so that was very hurtful. If people have walked through that, there's a couple people actually that I can think of that were like that. And then someone messaged me, because I kind of talked about this on Instagram the other day, and said something that I actually think is true. She said, a lot of times with those friends that you used to think were friends, there were red flags along the way. Yep. There were some red flags before they turned your back. You kind of knew that they were snooty. You kind of knew that they were gossipy. You kind of knew that maybe they weren't a good friend. And thinking back on this person, I'm like, yeah, actually, there were people who told me that she, was a jealous, gossipy, not good friend person, and I held on for who knows what reason. So also remember that these lost friendships because of what you believe could also be the grace of God protecting you.
I think that's absolutely true. And I also think one thing, I'm 29, so I'll be 30 next year. And one thing that I've really learned in my 20s is that there's an art to knowing how to respectfully and lovingly break up with friends.
Yeah. How do you do that?
I think sometimes they'll break up with you, and usually they're not very graceful. But I think there's just a way to, slowly but surely just kind of, you're not inviting them to things, but it's not a mean, I'm going to block you and unfollow you and do all these things. You can still follow each other on social media, and maybe you like their posts.
How do you know when to do that? How do you know when to say, okay, yeah, we disagree on this, but we're going to remain friends because we're both Christians, or whatever the commonality is? And when do you know that's you know what? This is just not a good friendship anymore.
Well, I think it's, are you sharpening their iron? Are they sharpening yours?
Are you just making each other dull?
Are you making each other dull? Are you feeding into each other in a good way? Do you feel uplifted after you hang out with this person, or do you feel drained? Those types of things. Do you feel better about yourself? Do you feel encouraged? Is this person encouraging you on your walk with Christ? My best friend Lauren is here watching us film, and I mean, Lauren is the first person in my life to call me out when I do something good and encourage me, that was awesome, I'm so proud of you, or to be what were you thinking? This was a terrible decision. I mean, she is like that, but that's a true friend. And I think, do you feel like you have to walk on eggshells in front of that person, or can you be honest with each other and hold each other accountable in things? Because even as Christians, we all sin, we all make mistakes, but is your other Christian friend willing to have those conversations with you? I know Lauren and I are willing to have those conversations, but if you have friends that you feel I can't even be honest with them, that's probably not a good, mature, healthy friendship.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it is it goes on a kind of a case by case basis. And I think that's a good distinction that you just explained. You're not saying that friendships should be absence of conflict. You're actually saying, what does the conflict actually look like? How are you working through it?
Yes.
Is it in a way that is toxic and that is degrading to you, or is just not healthy? Or is it a way that you work through the conflict and you're actually stronger because of it? Because I do think the world kind of tells us, secular psychology says, oh, as soon as you don't feel good in a relationship, or as soon as a friendship isn't perfect, or as soon as someone doesn't tell you everything you want to hear, cut that person out of your life. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, is the relationship actually healthy? How are you working through disagreements and conflicts? There's a way to do it. There's a way not to do it. What other advice would you give someone who maybe they're on a college campus, maybe they're in high school, maybe they're just, a mom in the neighborhood. They really want like-minded friends, but they're struggling finding that community. I think it can make all the difference, but where does someone start if they don't know where?
It is so awkward, but I am dead serious. You will just see a girl that looks cute. Maybe you're at the park. I mean, it's almost like how you pick up, a guy or something, or, they pick up you. You got to almost go out there and go on little girlfriend dates. Lauren and I was on the radio before I worked for Turning Point. I did radio, and Lauren was a listener of my show and just emailed me. He was like, I'm a fan of your show and whatever. And I was like, let's go get brunch. It is awkward as adults. It is very hard to make friends as adults, but sometimes it is really just, hey, you're always at the park here, and I know you don't know me or whatever, but I live around the corner, and would you ever want to go get a latte together sometime and we can get to know each other? And look, just like when you're dating guys, you might go on a friend date and be like, I have nothing in common with this girl. I'll never never talk to her again. But, I know her name if I need help at the park or something, or at the grocery store. She's a neighbor I can go get sugar from if I need it. Like, you can at least, make acquaintances that way. Or you might go out with somebody and be like, oh my gosh, like I have so much in common with this girl. I'd love to hang out with her. Saying hi to people at gym class, linking up in your local Republicans clubs. I think that's super important. All of those different types of things. There's a lot of really good local Facebook groups for people where they live. And that is how I've made a lot of friends, and a lot of my friends have made friends is based on interests, like the local, running group for your town, or a mommy and me group, or a homeschool group. They all have Facebook groups, and they're usually all getting together. And that's a really good, easy place to start. Yeah. But also, it's a really good little tip is, like, if you follow Allie Stuckey and Allie posts a video, just like click on people that are commenting on her stuff. And like, I always look at people's profiles who are interacting on the same accounts that I do. And then just, what if you click on somebody's profile and it's like, oh, they live in Scottsdale where I live. Yeah. And then I just DM them like, oh my gosh, you're a fan of Allie. I am. This is so random, but I live in Scottsdale. I happen to find your profile. Yeah. Like, we should get together sometime. We're both relatable fans. Like, that's a very easy, in with somebody. And of course, coming to events like the Young Women's Leadership Summit, which, by the way, is not just for young women. It's just for all ages.
Yeah, there's like a broad definition of that.
Yes. As long as you're a biological woman, you can come. Yeah. But anyone is welcome at these turning point events, and these are the best ways to meet friends.
Yes. Okay, speaking of dating, we only have a few minutes left, but speaking of dating, how is that as a conservative Christian woman in this world of dating apps and everything is hyper political and online? What's that been like? I know you're in a serious relationship, but...
I'm in a serious relationship, but I have been, oh my gosh. I mean, I've talked about it on my podcast, The Spillover. I have had some crazy dating experiences throughout my 20s. I've dated any type of guy you can think of and dealt with every single thing you can think of. And one thing I've learned is that I know that it was like an old taboo that on the first date, you never bring up politics, religion. I absolutely disagree with that.
Yeah.
On the first date, you should be saying what you are looking for, what your political beliefs are. Hey, it is important to me to get married and I want to have kids. What is your timeline looking like? What are you looking for? Are you looking just to date casually, or are you dating for marriage? I bring all that up. And you know what? If that scares them and freaks a guy out, then he isn't ready. And that's okay. And then you're just like, okay, cool. I didn't waste my time. But guys will make it very clear and intentional. I am ready for dating only, just a casual dating relationship, or I am looking to date and find someone to marry. And I'm looking for that, in the next year or so, 2 years. And I think it's okay to ask those things and say what you want.
Yeah. So with this current relationship, y'all talked about that on the first date.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
you already knew his political leanings.
I knew his political leanings because he worked at Turning Point. So that was easy.
That was easy.
That was easy. But no, we did talk about all that stuff. And we ended up, we were out at the same restaurant bar situation. I was there with girlfriends, and he and his friend showed up, and we just started talking because we knew each other from work. And then after that night, he immediately texted me the next day and said like, hey, I want to take you out to dinner. And ever since that, he called me every single night at dinner to ask me about my day, pursued me, made it known what his intentions are. And then even still now, we're talking about a timeline of, okay, when would it be realistic for us to get engaged? He's in California, I'm in Arizona.
Yeah, so there's that?
Well, we're trying to figure that out because my show and everything, my shows are filmed in Arizona and he has to live in Orange County. So that's one of those things that we're figuring out what we would do with that. But, it is something that we're discussing. It's not like it's the elephant in the room. He knows that I'm like, hey, I'm 29. I always make the joke. I'm like, I'm drying up. My eggs are drying up. I need a plan. But so no, he knows I really want to get married and have kids. So it's very open, and that's good. But if he started hesitating on that and stuff, it would be very sad and it would break my heart. But I'd have to figure out how to cut the ties.
You don't want to waste time.
Yeah.
All right, last sponsor for the day is Good Ranchers. I know you guys love to grill out in the summer. It's one of our favorite things to do. My husband, if I do say so myself, is not just a really good cook, but he is a very good griller, and he loves to grill the steaks from Good Ranchers. We have Good Ranchers meat almost every single night. Because once again, this is one of those things that just makes your life easy. You go online, goodranchers.com/Allie. You pick out the beef, the chicken, the seafood that you want. They individually wrap it. They put it on dry ice. They send it to your door in just a couple days. You put it in the freezer, and then every night you already have part of your meal taken care of, or at least chosen. So you don't have to worry about going to the grocery store and wondering, is this sustainably sourced, ethically raised? Is this even from the United States? It's kind of hard to guarantee that your product is that, but with Good Ranchers, you know all of those things are going to be true. They are supporting American farms and ranches, an industry that has just been decimated over the past several years, and they have really good prices. Plus, they've got a great deal right now. If you go to goodranchers.com/Allie and use my promo code, they include free 18-ounce prime center cut ribeyes with your order to every person that uses my code Allie. So make sure you take the time today. This is a great Father's Day gift, by the way, to go to goodranchers.com/Allie or use my code Allie at checkout to get your 2 free 18-ounce ribeyes. Start the summer off right with Good Ranchers. That's American meat delivered. So advice for, here, I want 2 different kinds of advice. One, advice for the single girl who is just demoralized by dating. Okay, so she's on her dating apps. People on there, sometimes they say they're a Christian, but then you meet them and you're like, not really. You're not on the same page with me theologically. And so they just feel like, oh my gosh, I want to give up. So one advice for that, just some like motivation and encouragement for that person. And also for the girl who's in a relationship. And I love talking to this kind of person who's in a relationship because you've gone through a lot of breakups too. She knows it's wrong. She knows this is not the right person, but she's scared to end it because maybe she's 29, 30, maybe she's 35. And she's afraid that she's not going to find someone. Where does she get the courage to just not settle? So let's start with number 1, the demoralized dater.
All right. For the demoralized dater, I would say that we really have to stop looking, and this is, I'm talking to myself, but we have to stop looking at singleness as a curse and look at it as a gift. Mm-hmm. Sometimes for that period in your life, I think God really wants us to own our singleness, and there's work for the kingdom that he is wanting us to do. And you have to think about, like, maybe that's something that needs to be done now, because obviously when you're a mom and when you're a wife, you're going to have other responsibilities and things you need to do. But now is the time that you can go out on the mission field, or you can start a new podcast, or, change your career up, or whatever it is that God has planned for you. And you need to do that now. And that's something that I really had to, in the time before I was in a serious relationship, really be in prayer and thinking about that. So I struggle with that, number 1. So I will be the first one to say that. So I would be, in prayer and thinking about that. And then for the person who's in a relationship that is just knowing that this isn't the right thing, you really should be leaning on your other Christian girlfriends for this and be like, hey, I need you to hold me accountable that I'm having these conversations with him, and being respectful to him also in your breakup, and being honest.
Be so honest.
Because if you are
Don't do the whole right now thing.
Yeah. It is not, I would say this, and I am at that age where it's like scary. Like, I really feel like I need to be getting married soon and having kids soon because I don't want to be an older mother. Personally, that's just not my choice. Some people, that is their choice. But I would like to have all that sooner rather than later. But, if the day came where my current boyfriend, for example, all of a sudden something changed and I thought, this isn't right, even though I'm at the age where I really want to get married, I would rather break up with him instead of jumping into a marriage, which we believe obviously is for till death, that I am miserable or things are wrong. And so you really have to, is it going to be, a few months or maybe a few years of uncomfortable versus being with the love of your life, the guy that God has planned for you forever. That's better, more of a better trade-off, I think.
It's better to be single and sad than married and trapped, I think.
Well, and there's, somebody that I know that is in that type of situation where she is starting to feel married and trapped and like, oh no, I ignored so many red flags. I've made a huge mistake. And that I would say arguably she has the kids and she does have a beautiful home and she has the husband, but she is so miserable. And so as miserable as you feel single and like, I would just die to have a husband and kids, you don't want to have the wrong husband.
You don't want to settle. No, because that really is for life. You're also marrying their family. And I will say for the person who is in that position, like, God can redeem anything, even if you are in a marriage where you feel trapped, like you have no idea what God can do in and through that. So I don't want you to think that it's total lost cause. You're just going to spend the rest of your life like miserable and trapped. Maybe not. You have no idea how God can work through that season. Marriages go through different seasons and different feelings and things like that. So be careful also, because Satan will also use those feelings to tempt you to infidelity and to covetousness and things like that. So make sure that in those situations that you are still seeking the Lord and seeking Christian community, but also for the person, as you said, who is engaged, even if you're engaged, even if your wedding is tomorrow and you've had that conviction from the Holy Spirit, something's been telling you. I had that at a previous relationship. There was nothing on paper, but something was telling me from the very beginning, this is not right, this is not right, this is not right. I wanted it because it looked good on paper. I always wanted to get married right after college, and thank the Lord. I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you, Lord. But do not ignore that conviction. Do not ignore it.
You know what I think actually would be really helpful that I don't think a lot of enough Christians anyway are talking about is I actually think premarital counseling before getting engaged is a good idea. If you're dating seriously and you're like, I think we want to get engaged, I say do the premarital counseling before the engagement, because that's a lot easier to break up before the engagement than be engaged and then break up before the marriage.
Yeah, if you're in a serious position, there are some churches that have like programs like that, or at least like if you know a godly couple, at least have them like informally sit down with you and ask you some questions, or like the campus minister of like an organization at your college, your pastor, even if you can't afford to like pay a counselor to sit down with you in a formal way. I think you're right. Get some godly, older, wise people to ask you some tough questions so that y'all can have some soul searching. I think that's a really good piece of advice. All right. One, do you have anything final to say about YWLS, what people can expect, what you're excited about, and also where can people find you and your podcast if they don't already listen?
Turning Point USA's Young Women's Leadership Summit is an event that happens every year exclusively for women in the conservative movement. And
it's so fun.
It is so fun. And if you've ever been to an event for conservatives before, I'm just telling you, if you've never been to a Turning Point event, it is night and day. We've got pyrotechnics and confetti shooting. And YWLS is fun because every year is a different theme. And so last year it was like pink and Barbie. The whole theme was capitalist Barbie. Like Barbie in America gets to live in her dream house and do all these things because she lives under capitalism. And so that was last year. This year, the theme is darker and edgy. There's lots of black and then pink and purple and, storms and lightnings. And it's like, we are angry. In the last, definitely, since President Biden came into office, we're angry. We're not happy with the direction things are going. Okay, so now we're really mad. Now, how are we going to channel that into activism and really make a difference, and how it's okay to be angry, but then what do you do with that? And especially in a midterm year, how important that is. So that's really the theme this year. So I told Allie, and you know how Allie is. I mean, look at her set. If you're watching on her YouTube channel, like Allie is so bright and cheery and soft and pastels and all this. And I was like, you got to bring out your inner like angry kind of emo Allie chick.
Emo Allie. Oh, people know. I can. Yeah, she told me a couple months ago. I told her what I was planning on wearing. She was like, oh, the theme is black. And I was like, oh, dang it. Okay, but no, I've adjusted. She's
going to look great. She showed me what she's wearing. It's super cute. So anyway, that's going to be really fun. But if you didn't get to make it this year, you really should try to make it next year. And it's just people leave these events, at least the Turning Point women's one especially, with lifelong friendships like we were talking about. The girls that are going to be, your future bridesmaids and stuff. It's incredible. So I would recommend that. I have 2 shows, a daily show called Poplitics on Instagram where I cover pop culture from a conservative perspective. And then I have a weekly podcast called The Spillover, anywhere you get your podcast. And I interview dynamic personalities and people that have jaw-dropping stories. Allie was one of them, and we talked about the dark side of the birthing business.
Yes,
so
super fun.
I've interviewed all kinds of people from serial killer survivors, and
you really do have like such incredible interviews.
It's different every week.
I love listening to them. I mean, I love both shows, but like it's so interesting the guests that you have. And Alex does, if you don't already know, you don't already follow her, which I know that we have huge crossover in our audiences, so a lot of people are already familiar. But for those who don't, like Alex really does a very unique thing. I don't know if there's anyone that talks about pop culture, especially as consistently and as well and as interestingly as Alex does. So if you don't tune into her stuff, like I really recommend that you do, because it's such a unique angle. And I think it's so important for us. We don't just have to be like academic and dry and philosophical all the time.
As conservatives.
Yes,
yeah.
I love that stuff. I
Yep.
love talking about that, and there's a time and a place for that. But look, that's not for everyone. And so like we need different kinds of voices, different kinds of people, different kinds of angles to appeal to like the wide range of people that are out there. Alex does that really well in a very bold way. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Allie. And
Yes.
Allie kills it with, theology and talking about
Thanks.
politics and all that stuff. She owns that space. And I think that's a fun thing if you're somebody that desires a career in the conservative movement or media in the conservative movement, is figuring out what your niche is. And, Allie has found hers and owning that one specific thing. You don't have to be a catch-all person that talks about anything and everything. I don't do that. I'm not talking theology. That's not my strength. That's Allie's. But I love talking pop culture and I love true crime and all that. So I kind of do that. And you can still be a conservative and, have more of a fun or entertaining show and stuff like that. So I like being able to be that person. And I kind of explain it as like, I like being a hostess to the conservative movement. Like, I like welcoming people in that are very scared of conservatives and are weary of super deep, conversations. I just welcome them in. I'm like, look, we're fun. We're normal.
Yeah.
We like all the same stuff. And then, people like Allie and Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro, you guys can do the full red pill.
You're the gateway.
I just like being the gateway drug to conservatism.
The gateway drug till you get to the hard stuff.
Yeah, I'm the pink pill. Allie's the red pill.
Yeah, that's so funny. Well, thank you so much for what you do. Thanks for taking the time to come on. Super excited about YWLS. It's going to be amazing. And yeah, everyone can find you on Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff.
Yes, at Real Alex Clark and the Spillover Podcast. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much.